Hi, I'm Eddie Muller, and thanks for joining me this Sunday morning for a trip through Noir Alley. Today, some 70 years after most of the Hollywood films we call noir were made, people are still debating just what it is that qualifies a film to be considered noir. Some think it's all about the look. Others feel it's a particular type of story. And this endless debate, frankly, helps sustain and even deepen interest in the genre. Well, if it is a genre, which is yet another debate. One thing no one argues, however, is when film noir reached its peak. That was unquestionably the end of the 1940s, 1948 and 49 to be exact. Today's film, 1949's Act of Violence, is one of the very best noirs produced during this peak period. That it was made at Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, a studio typically averse to gritty crime dramas, goes to show just how pervasive the black tide of noir was at the time. The film's failure at the box office, however, might indicate that the American public wasn't yet ready for a tough-minded exploration of how the good war could still disease the character of otherwise decent, valiant men. To me, Act of Violence is film noir at its finest, a seemingly simple suspense story that manages to confront such timeless issues as courage, cowardice, and the situational ethics required to survive in wartime. Beyond that, it offers an insightful take on the post-war expansion of America's suburbs, specifically the development boom in the greater Los Angeles area. The use of actual locations makes this an amazing time capsule of mid-century LA, from the Angels Flight Railway on downtown's Bunker Hill to Big Bear Lake in the San Bernardino National Forest, and plenty of evocative spots in between. On the surface, Act of Violence plays like an early stalker movie, with the great Robert Ryan as a mysterious trench-coated Terminator out to kill a revered war hero played by Van Heflin. But there's a lot going on under the surface, and that is a credit to the writers. Collier Young, who wrote the original 6-page story, Robert L. Richards, who provided the polished screenplay, and James Gunn, who did uncredited revisions while the film was in production. Viennese immigrant Fred Zinnemann, who'd go on to a fantastic career as an A-list director, maintained that this was the first film in which he felt he had total control of the medium. After coming to America in the late 1930s, Zinnemann spent a number of years under contract to MGM, making what he considered frivolous B movies. In an odd twist of fate, his fortunes as a director improved precisely at the time he finally learned, in 1948, that both his parents had died in a Nazi concentration camp. His next 4 films, The Search, Act of Violence, The Men, and Teresa, all revolved around characters suffering profound aftershocks from the Second World War. Zinnemann's passion for high-minded material, as well as his skill at drawing great performances from his actors, quickly elevated him to the highest ranks of Hollywood's directors, where he created all-time classics in a variety of genres, such as From Here to Eternity, Oklahoma, The Sundowners, and A Man for All Seasons. Now, it may be the only noir on Fred Zinnemann's resume, but Act of Violence stands among the best. Of course, it helps when you're working with extraordinary talents like cinematographer Robert Surtees, actors the caliber of Van Heflin and Robert Ryan, and an amazing supporting cast. A very young Janet Leigh, she's only 22 here, makes a striking impression in one of her earliest performances. But to me, the most memorable character in the film is Pat, a worn and weary prostitute played by Mary Astor. She relished this part, and although it's much smaller than her usual starring roles, it's one of the most vivid performances of her career. Released in January of 1949, perhaps a few years ahead of its time, here is Act of Violence.